I've been listening to Jada Pinkett Smith book Worthy on Audible. I don't really have the time really to be flipping through pages, and I'm just busy on the go always. But I did say I wanted to start reading books. But my friend was like, "Girl, start just listening to audibles." Half of the time I listen to people talking about, just radio talk, or what they call it. I can't think. Podcasts. I've been listening to those. So I was like, why not? I just want to say, I like her book. I haven't read Will's book. I am reading his or listening to his after. But I'm a girl's girl, and I am a fan of Jada Pinkett Smith. And just the Smith family, I never was the person that was judging their marriage, their life. I actually like the transparency, especially about their marriage, because I don't hear a lot about marriage in the Black community. I'm just going to say it. And to be honest, I grew up with a whole bunch of women. My parents were married before my mom died. But I didn't really I was 12 when my mom died, so I don't really, the dynamics of marriage, I've always been interested in. I've watched shows from, all the early ones, the Cosby's, Fresh Prince, all these shows, right? But I grew up around a lot of women. So I'm like a girl's girl, okay? So I've watched all of Jada. I'm a fan of Jada and her family, but specifically the transparency healing talk. So I've been watching Red Table Talk, and I find it beneficial for me and just getting a different aspect and thought process, and to think about things I typically would not think, or I would table and all that stuff. So I like her book. I can relate to Jada Pinkett because I grew up in an area much like hers. And I just was brought up really different in a sense. So the whole Worthy, I'm a married woman, and I've made sacrifices in my relationship that I'm not going to really talk about, but I can really relate having it look like I have it all on paper and not having anyone to vent to, because it will come off as ungrateful. Her book is basically saying, just because you married or have that family or you rich or this and that don't mean you ain't going through deep-rooted problems that started from when you were a child, when you was in your mama's stomach, essentially, because that's where the trauma begins. So I love hearing the relationships she's gained, how she became famous, what came with fame, family, and even her marriage. I want to hear about, marriage and just in general. No one tells you how to parent, and no one tells you how to be married. Your marriage is defined off of what you and your partner agree to. That whole bashing her is ridiculous to me. As if Will isn't a grown adult. For them to make her and villainize her. If you read her book, she sounds like a regular wife just because she's more open to speaking about it. I don't know if Will talked about it as much in his book, but she's a typical wife. I'm not at the part in her book where, it's showing the dip with the August and all this and that and the third. But just her having that meltdown at 40, which she talked about on her Red Table, I can relate. And I'm about to be 35. I feel like her book is a telling story for any woman, Black woman at that. Story of just success, not even just success, of just being a person, a human, being humane. And I like that she picked Worthy as the title of her book, because essentially the book focuses on feeling worthy and not having guilt for being successful or learning how to get around all of those things. So whoever was bashing her, I'm so glad I didn't jump on that train where everybody bashing her, because I know in a marriage it takes two. It ain't one. No. Y'all need to really grow up. And for the people who ain't married, who don't know, you go through phases in your relationship. You might, and you're still growing as a person. People don't see that. So I would say go get the book. The book is good. And I'm going for Will's right after this. I like how she went into, I didn't really talk about the review of the book. So she talked a lot about who raised her. And she's basically setting the ground for why she ended up becoming the person, going through having problems with learning and loving her inner self. So it shows, she's showing like how her parents, she's seen abuse, or it was abuse before her, but she heard about it and with her. Then she talks about seeing her grandmother and her other grandmother on her father's side. I'm at the point right now where she's kind of going through her breakdown at 40 years old, which is chapter 17, and realizing, like, I love how she talks about how her children has helped her grow. I can relate to that. So yeah, I'm almost there. I would give her book, if I had to rate it from a 5, I would give it so far a 4.